If you want to change, you can, but you have to want it. No one can force that on you or give you their will for you to become the best version of yourself. I believe you can find success in your life regardless of how bad things have been for you, or however they are right now. Regardless of the hand that you may have been dealt, or if you dug yourself into a hole, or just the sheer bad luck you've had to put up with, you can become successful. And even more importantly, I believe you can change who you are into the kind of person that you're proud of, even if you feel like you haven't become that person yet. Now, let me ask, and feel free to throw it in the comments, when was the last time you felt like you were in a tight spot? Or maybe you just felt like you were dealt a tough hand at the very start of your life and you haven't quite climbed out of it yet. Either way, there are times for just about everyone where they feel like they've hit rock bottom. And you might even feel like there's no way you can climb out of the hole that you've dug yourself into. But today we're going to be going over why that just isn't the case. Because here's the thing, if you want to change, you can, but you have to want it. No one can force that on you or give you their will for you to become the best version of yourself. And a lot of people don't necessarily want to change. And that mostly comes from one of two things. Either we're satisfied with how things are, or we just don't believe that we have the power to challenge the status quo, so why bother? Let's start with the first one though. There are plenty of people who don't want to be told that they need to change or that they believe that they even should change. And yet a lot of those same people believe that they want more out of their lives. They want to make more money. They want to have better relationships with the people around them, or just be in better shape. You name it. The list goes on and on. And those desires are really a part of how we're wired as humans, as people. It's in our nature to want more. It's by design. It's an evolutionary function. What most people don't realize is that there's another natural flow that determines whether or not we obtain those higher aspirations. Because outcomes and results like more money, better health and relationships are all a byproduct of the effort that we put into something. And the effort we put into something comes before the result. Go figure. But those results often require consistent effort and input over an extended period of time. And that kind of effort and work ethic is most commonly built out of habits and our perspective. Because if we do not believe that making a consistent effort will make a difference, then we will never stick with a project or a habit long enough to see the results. Also, if we don't believe that the strategy that we're using will get us our result, we'll never make the effort in the first place. So we need both the strategy and the belief to make it work. And that combination is normally determined by our character traits, belief systems, and what identities we choose to accept. To sum all of that up, if we want more, we have to either do more or use a better strategy. And in order to do more or use that better strategy, we need to either increase our effort and or both our knowledge. And then to take action on our chosen plan, we actually need to believe that it will make a difference and then act over that necessary period of time to get the results. But again, we will never take that action for a long enough period of time if our beliefs, character, or identities do not support those actions, strategies, and habits. So our outer world is merely a reflection of our inner world. And I'll be honest, that can be a really tough pill to swallow, speaking from experience. Not many people want to believe that we've done something wrong. Again, I group myself into that category because sometimes rather than face the truth that our life isn't what we wanted it to be, we have a tendency to hide or to numb our conscience. We'll say things like, oh, people who want X are just a bunch of egotists. Or they might lie to themselves with statements like, I never wanted to do X anyway. I was being unrealistic. Or I just want to be comfortable. And what we don't realize is that comfort is actually the enemy of our progress. Because by numbing the pain that we sometimes experience with things like drugs, alcohol, TV, video games, the list keeps on going, we end up taking away the very emotion and motivation that can propel ourselves forward rather than by processing that pain from that struggle or failure, learning from it, and then coming up with a strategy to overcome it. Or just as problematic, we reach our comfort level and then we take our foot off the gas and we start to lose momentum as a result of that, and then our production or our drive takes a dive, right? And then before you know it, we're back where we started from just a little while ago. I see this a lot in my sales career and also in the sales careers of my colleagues. We often call this a roller coaster lifestyle. I've actually lived this lifestyle, and let me tell you that that roller coaster of emotions is not nearly as much fun as the roller coasters in theme parks. And this is what you're signing up for if you believe that you do not need to change, or if you only set a comfort goal. I actually believe that's one of the major reasons why Albert Einstein said, to make a goal of comfort or happiness has never appealed to me. A system of ethics built on this basis would be sufficient only for a herd of cattle. And for me, the permanent cure to achieving any goal or outcome comes down to our worldview, our inner core of belief systems and the identities that we accept for ourselves. So let me ask, and again, feel free to throw this in the comments, what is your take on life? What is your reason or belief for being alive right now? For me, I believe that this is not my first state of existence. While I have no memory of a world before this one, I know that I lived before this life, and more importantly, that I was sent to this place to learn, to grow, and to prepare myself for the next life after. I don't want to get super metaphysical here, but this outlook has really made all of the difference in the world for me. And regardless of your tastes, I believe that we all need some kind of belief system, and it would be best if it enabled and provided us with the best view of ourselves. And that's what my faith in Christ has done for me. Now, there are so many great faiths and philosophies out there. Most of them have more in common than what separates them, and they promote us to reach the best for ourselves. That's why, in addition to my faith, I also study Stoic philosophy and practice certain forms of Zen. And with each of those, I found truth and learned how to cultivate the best parts of me. I do not always live up to those standards, but when I do screw up, I just do my best to recognize where I went off course and then just make the necessary course corrections. And speaking for myself, that worldview has inspired me to reach higher and pick myself up when I fall short. It helps me to see that failure is not really a permanent thing, because I know that this life was designed as really a proving and testing ground for us to really reach our ultimate potential. But that means we have to be curious and experiment. And that means messing up and analyzing what happened, good or bad, and then just making adjustments to try again. And when we take this perspective, it creates so much relief. We just don't have to be perfect. We can afford mistakes so long as we're not denying them and continuing to stick with them. Because again, we can change. Our bodies and our brains are literally designed and created to be able to change. And the brain's ability to change and be molded is one of the most fascinating things in the world to me. In science, this is called neuroplasticity. And without getting too deep into the weeds here, it just means that the brain is moldable. And two of my favorite books of all time talk about this in great depth. Shawn Achor has The Happiness Advantage, and Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. In Shawn Achor's Happiness Advantage, he goes through several studies of how people's brains have been molded to work better with their situations, especially when those situations change. Things like how a London cabbie driver's brain developed increased function and its spatial awareness to help them navigate the maze of London streets. Or how after someone had suffered a real tragedy and gone completely blind, their brain increased the sensitivity of the nerves in one of their index fingers just to help them to learn how to read Braille. And there are so many examples that Shawn gives in his book, and they're totally fascinating. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick up a copy. And in Mindset by Carol Dweck, she outlines how this is not just a biological shift in our brain, but it also affects how we look at life with something she referred to as a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And Dr. Dweck repeatedly goes through studies working with both children and adults on how this perspective of being able to grow and change completely shifts a person's life direction. Because if you don't believe that you can change or should change, you're gonna fall into the trap of believing that you're born a certain way and there's no sense of even making an effort to change. And you can often hear this fixed mindset in other people's language, the way they say things like, I'm no good at math, or I'm a terrible reader, or I can never do something like pass the bar exam, right? Whereas those with growth mindsets see every opportunity as a challenge. They see things as a way to assess and to grow from where they stand in any kind of field of life. And where I have seen a lot of people get tripped up by this is that this really isn't a binary 1 or 0. In other words, they're not completely fixed-minded or completely growth-minded, but they fall on that scale depending on what the subject matter is. We might believe that we can get better in the gym and sports, but not in our ability to read or study. And yes, it is true that some of us have talents that others don't, and it makes those fields of life easier for us than it would for others, but that doesn't condemn us to be miserable in the other areas of our lives where we don't have the talent. We can constantly grow and get better. And with enough repetitions, our brains will rewire themselves for success if we're consistent in both our effort and mindset. And this leads me to my point. Your starting point doesn't mean nearly as much as your direction in life. You have complete control over what adjustments you choose to make. And even those people who start out in the worst of conditions can rise above the average and become truly special. I was actually really lucky enough to go to college and be taught by a professor who was abandoned by his family, given up on by pretty much every teacher because of his dyslexia and ADHD. They called him stupid and they had written him off, basically just written his history in advance and just labeled him as a failure. And for a while, he believed it. But he was found by one teacher who helped him shift his mindset to a growth mindset. And while his progress was painfully slow, especially at the beginning, he was consistent. And over time, his growth compounded until he obtained his doctorate, performing groundbreaking research on the field of education and mentorship, and is now headhunted regularly by several Ivy League schools to come teach for them. But so far, he's chosen to stay at my alma mater, where he just feels he can make the most impact. And more than anything, I hope that this video just reminds you of the fact that you are in control of the direction of your life, just like the professor that I talked about, and that it provides you with a few extra resources to reinforce that belief. So again, just do yourself a favor. Adopt a worldview that best serves you and promotes the best in yourself. Believe that you can change. And when you've done that, you've completed the most important step in any journey, which is the first one. Because no matter how old or young you are, you can grow and reach new heights. The science is there to prove it, and so is the history. And don't take advice from people who have smaller goals for you than you have for yourself. You've just got to watch out for that. I'll have a video on that before too long, but in the meantime, if you like videos like these, check this one out.